released a rather very interesting insight report that tells you exactly how much the Indiana Fever's social media engagements are actually monetarily worth. Either on X or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, whatever. I mean, all these posts have a monetary value to them based on engagement.
This is unbelievable. The Indiana Fever's social media presence has been valued at a jaw-dropping $55.4 million. Chanki Yekti Biram and the next team isn't even close. Forbes just released the report, and now every critic who spent months doubting the hype is backpedaling fast. Because the numbers tell the story better than words ever could. For months, people debated who really drives attention in the WNBA, and now the data has spoken loud and clear. One player has completely rewritten the game. This isn't just a boost for a franchise, it's a cultural earthquake. The Fever didn't just draft a player, they drafted a movement. Someone who moves markets, inspires fans, and reshapes the conversation around women's sports. The value is real, the impact is historic. And make no mistake, this moment marks the beginning of a whole new era for the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark fan, if you're an Indiana Fever fan, this is something you already know. However, for the haters out there, the old WNBA fandom, many of you call them the slows, for those fans, they're in complete denial. We've tried to tell people Caitlin Clark moves the needle unlike anybody else in this league or everybody else in this league. It just sort of is what it is. Fans are coming to see one particular player, and along with that, carries over the support to the entire team.
But let's pause for a second before anyone starts shouting that this is somehow disrespectful to other players or that we should celebrate everyone. Equally, let's stick to the facts. These aren't opinions or hype-driven takes. These are verified numbers. The data comes straight from a legitimate study by STN Digital and Mona Zoom Analytics, which analyzed more than 20,000 pieces of content across Instagram, X, Facebook, and YouTube over the entire season. They didn't just look at likes or comments, they measured impressions, engagement rates, and the advertising value equivalent of that exposure. And the results? The Indiana Fever didn't just win, they obliterated the competition. The margin was so massive, it's almost embarrassing for every other team in the league.
A lot of money. They are worth a lot of money, and I can tell you right now, that's a little over 5 times higher than the next WNBA team. 5 times higher. Let's go down here. Just scroll down. The Indiana Fever's staggering $55 million social media evaluation speaks volumes.
Now here's where things get wild. Second place went to the Dallas Wings, which are valued at $0.61 million to our pound. Let that sink in. The gap between first and second place is over. Ni kama percent para bilantar 46 million. Timump. That's not competition, that's domination. The Fever aren't just leading the pack. They're in a completely different stratosphere, posting numbers no other team can even dream of touching. To be fair, the Wings had an incredible year, 5% engagement growth, and a huge surge in social value. But even with all that momentum, the gap is staggering. Coming in third were the Las Vegas Aces, at a $7.64 million. Which makes sense, they're a dynasty franchise with multiple championships and top-tier talent. Fourth place went to the New York Liberty, at new $7.5 million bake. Also expected given they're based in the largest media market in the country, but here's where it gets really interesting. Fifth place went to the Chicago Sky. Remember all those heated debates about who was really driving the WNBA's surge in popularity this season? All the arguments over which rookie was changing the game and shaping the culture? Well, the numbers just settled it. Decisively. The fact that the Sky finished fifth, despite supposedly having a player with equal star power, says everything. For months, the story was that there were 2 rookies fueling the league's explosion. But the data tells a very different story. a 48.69 million gap between the Fever and the Sky. That's not media hype, that's proof. One team isn't just influencing the league, they're redefining it.
Noticing the growing popularity of WNBA across social media, social agency STN Digital, and analytics and measurement platform Zoom teamed up to quantify the league's online impact with a newly released WNBA social rankings and insight report. The research analyzes how every team performed across social media during the 2025 season and identifies which clubs and content pieces generated the most engagement, impressions, and estimated media value.
What's even crazier is that the Fever didn't stop pushing Caitlin Clark content when the season ended. They kept the momentum alive, posting, engaging, and giving fans exactly what they wanted. They understood the assignment. When you have someone generating this level of attention, you don't hit the brakes. You keep feeding the audience, you keep the hype rolling, and you capitalize on that energy for as long as you can. That's not luck, that's smart business. The study, which analyzed content from May 16 to September 11, revealed jaw-dropping numbers. The Fever pulled in 38.73 million engagements and a staggering 1.17 billion impressions. Yes, billion with a B. To put that into perspective, that's more impressions than many major professional sports teams rack up across an entire year on all platforms combined. That's the scale we're talking about here. And let's not forget, this is the WNBA we're talking about, a league that has historically fought for mainstream attention and consistent media coverage. Yet here we are with numbers that look like they came straight out of the NFL or NBA playbook. One of the most jaw-dropping stats from the report: the Fever had a single YouTube video valued at over $733,000, not a campaign, not a series. One single video worth nearly $750,000 in advertising value. That's the kind of number that makes marketing execs lose sleep, because it proves just how massive, active, and passionate this fan base is right now. You don't pull numbers like that unless people are watching, sharing, commenting, and coming back again and again. For context, that one video alone was worth more than some entire WNBA team's total social media value for the whole season. Let that sink in. Think about that for a second. One piece of Fever content is worth more than the entire season's output from some franchises. That's not just winning, that's domination. The kind of domination that forces the entire league to rethink its approach to social media, content strategy, and fan engagement moving forward. Now, let's break down how these numbers actually work, because the methodology matters. The study used something called a social value metric, which measures what advertisers would have to pay to get the same level of exposure through paid ads. So, when we say the Fever generated $55 million in social media value, that means if a company tried to buy that same reach and engagement through traditional advertising, it would cost them $55 million out of pocket. But here's the wild part. The Fever are getting that value organically, simply by posting content fans genuinely want to see. No paid campaign, no inflated boosts, just raw demand and real engagement. This completely dismantles the narrative that the WNBA's growth is evenly spread out, or that multiple players are equally driving the surge in popularity. If that were true, the numbers across the top teams would be much closer. Instead, you have one franchise generating 5 times more value than second place. That's not parity. That's one player pulling an entire organization into the spotlight and elevating the league with her, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Now, to be fair, the Dallas Wings' year-over-year growth is still worth highlighting. A 505% jump in engagement is nothing short of incredible, and a big part of that likely stems from Sophie Cunningham's standout social presence and magnetic personality. She's become one of the most searched WNBA players and landed major brand deals, including Arby's, because she understands how to market herself and create content that fans actually want to engage with. But even with that explosive growth, the Wings still aren't anywhere close to the Fever's numbers. And that alone shows just how massive Caitlin Clark's impact truly is. The Chicago Sky finishing 5th might be the most eye-opening part of this entire report, especially for anyone who bought into the season-long narrative that 2 players were equally transforming the league. The media pushed that storyline hard, but the data tells a very different story, a nearly $49 million gap. That's not a tight race. That's not even a competition. One player is driving engagement and value at a level nobody else in the league can touch. Sure, some people will try to chalk it up to the Fever having a better social team or stronger content strategy. But when the gap is this massive, it's not about strategy. It's about star power and cultural impact. Clark didn't just move the needle, she rebuilt the meter. And sure, there's some truth to that. STN Digital did partner with the Fever on campaigns and content strategy, and yes, that definitely helped maximize the value they generated. But let's be clear, you could hire the best social media team on the planet, and if your players don't captivate fans, the content simply won't hit. The Fever's numbers are what they are because fans want Caitlin Clark content. They want highlights, updates, behind-the-scenes moments. Anything tied to her? The demand drives the content, not the other way around. This report also exposes something the WNBA has been hesitant to fully confront. Star power matters. The league has pushed an egalitarian narrative for years, that everyone is equally important and deserves equal attention. But the numbers don't lie. Not everyone moves culture the same way. Not everyone draws millions of eyes. And when one player is clearly operating at a different level, pretending otherwise doesn't help the league, it holds it back. But that's not how sports fandom works. Fans connect with individual stars. They buy jerseys with specific names on the back. They tune in to watch particular athletes perform. The sooner the WNBA fully embraces that reality and builds its marketing around its biggest stars, the faster the league will grow. The Fever's social media value also brings massive power when it comes to attracting sponsors and negotiating partnerships. When you can walk into a meeting and show potential partners over 1 billion impressions and nearly 40 million engagements, you have real leverage. Brands don't just want visibility, they want passionate, active audiences. And the Fever have proven they can deliver that at a scale no other team in the league can touch. That kind of engagement translates directly into revenue through sponsorships, advertising deals, and long-term partnerships. What's even more important is what this means for the Fever's future business decisions. When one player is responsible for generating this much social media value, you do whatever it takes to keep that player happy. And on your roster, you build around them, you support them, you make sure they have every resource they need to succeed, because losing a star with this level of impact would be catastrophic for the franchise's business. The Fever aren't just thinking about wins and losses anymore. They're thinking about engagement, impressions, social value, and every business metric that comes with having a truly transcendent star. And look at the Las Vegas Aces finishing third, despite being defending champions with multiple All-Stars. That proves something crucial. Winning alone doesn't fuel social media dominance. The Aces have the championships, the talent, and the success. But even that couldn't match the cultural pull and audience demand generated by one superstar in Indiana. Sure, the Aces are champions, but they don't generate the same level of fan interest or content engagement as teams with more marketable personalities. And that's a key lesson for the entire league. Winning banners is great, but championships alone don't translate into social media value if fans aren't emotionally invested in your players. Take the New York Liberty finishing fourth. That's surprising when you consider they play in the largest media market in the country. You'd assume New York would have a huge advantage in social growth and engagement, but geography only helps if you have stars and content people actually care about. The Liberty are competitive and well-built, but they don't have anyone generating Caitlin Clark-level interest. And without that level of star power, even the biggest market has a ceiling. So, what this report really proves is that the WNBA's recent surge in popularity is not as evenly spread as the league wants everyone to believe. There is one undeniable engine behind this explosion in attention, and the numbers make that impossible to argue against. The Fever's social media value is 5 times higher than second place. Their content pulls billions of impressions. Individual videos are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars on their own. Those aren't the numbers of a league experiencing evenly shared growth. Those are the numbers of one team and one superstar, operating on a completely different level from everyone else. For the fans who have been pointing this out all season, this report is pure vindication. And for those who insisted that multiple players were equally responsible for driving the WNBA forward, the data just delivered a harsh, unavoidable reality check. And for the league itself, this should be a massive wake-up call about where the attention and value are actually coming from. You can keep pretending everyone contributes equally if you want, but the data tells a very different story. The Fever's social media dominance also puts real pressure on other franchises to step up. If one team can generate $55 million in social value, while others are sitting in the single-digit millions, that means there is a massive opportunity being wasted across the league. Other organizations need to study what the Fever are doing, understand why it works, and develop their own compelling content strategies that truly resonate with fans. Because if they don't, this gap is only going to get wider. And let's be honest, this report is powerful ammunition for anyone arguing that certain players deserve higher salaries and better treatment within the league. When one athlete is driving this level of financial impact and visibility, compensation and support need to reflect that reality. When you can directly quantify the value a player brings to a franchise and to the league through social media impact, it becomes a lot harder to justify paying them the same as players who generate only a fraction of that engagement. The WNBA's salary structure doesn't truly account for individual star power and marketing value the way other major leagues do. But numbers like these make it crystal clear that maybe, just maybe, it should. The estimated media value model used in this study is the exact approach major brands and corporations use to measure social media ROI. They look at impressions, engagement, and then determine what that level of exposure would cost through paid advertising. And the fact that the Fever are generating $55 million in equivalent advertising value purely from organic content is nothing short of remarkable from a business perspective. That's free marketing that would cost tens of millions of dollars to replicate through traditional advertising channels. The numbers are in there, and they're not up for debate anymore. Caitlin Clark isn't just moving the needle for the Indiana Fever. She's operating in an entirely different universe than everyone else when it comes to social media value and fan engagement. She isn't just boosting interest. She's redefining what it means for a player to impact a franchise, a league, and an entire sport in the digital era. If you want to stay locked in on the real stories behind the numbers, the data, the business, the impact, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because we're breaking down everything the mainstream media still hasn't figured out yet.